Senate Foreign Relations Committee, Ted Cruz goes crazy.
Mr. Woodhouse, how many Hamas terrorists did you sanction for using human shields during this conflict?
Thank you for that question, Senator. During the Biden administration, we have released multiple rounds of sanctions targeting both Hamas and its financial networks in the region and globally, seeking to continue to degrade its ability to operate and perpetrate these awful crimes against Israel.
So I understand you want to make a generic statement. I want to ask the question again because it's precise. How many Hamas terrorists did you sanction for using human shields during the 2021 conflict?
With respect to SHIELD Act sanctions, I'll have to get back to you. I don't have that number currently.
Well, I can help you on it. That number was 0. You did not sanction anybody, and that's why you don't have the number, because there's not an answer to give. All right, let's move forward. Hamas sanctions, they use human shields. You've got a mandatory obligation to sanction them, but this administration doesn't want to, because in a conflict between the Palestinians and Israel, this administration has decided that you're for the Palestinians and against Israel. Recently, you exercised the other half of that. This administration sanctioned Israelis. Those sanctions were imposed pursuant to a new executive order that imposes crippling sanctions on, quote, persons undermining peace, security, and stability in the West Bank. Critics have rightly said that this executive order and your imposition of sanctions is meant to target only Israeli Jews living in Judea and Samaria. The administration has claimed in your talking points that the sanctions are neutral. So if it's neutral, it ought to be pretty simple to answer this question. The Palestinian Authority gives hundreds of millions of dollars to terrorists who murder Jews. These are pay-to-slay payments, which they call martyrs' funds. How many sanctions have you imposed on the Palestinian Authority or Palestinian officials for paying for the murder of Jews?
Thank you for that question, Senator. The program that you just referenced has been very recently established. There's been one round of sanctions imposed under that program. I can't preview future action.
All on Jews?
Expect the first round did, the targets were all Israeli. Yes.
Well, and clearly in the wake of October 7th, you're looking at Hamas terrorists who murder 1,200 people, who rape women, who murder children. And I'll tell you, it was sickening. A number of us sat here. The chairman of this committee arranged for us to listen to stories of the horrors that came on. Why does the Biden administration look at that and say, clearly what we need to do is sanction Israeli Jews, but we don't sanction Hamas. We don't sanction Hamas terrorists for using human shields, and you don't sanction the Palestinian Authority for essentially offering rewards for the murder of civilians. Why not?
Let's talk about the Palestinians, okay? Palestinians are ruled by Hamas. Hamas is a terror organization. If you recall what happened on October 7th, women were raped. And if there's children watching, cover their ears because they were brutally raped. Their breasts were cut off. They were being thrown around. And women were being laughed at. Many Jewish women by Hamas. Okay? These people are absolute animals. And how the Biden administration can even placate these animals is insane. Joe Biden left billions of dollars of weapons in Afghanistan. There are serious allegations that these weapons have made their way to Hezbollah and Hamas. Joe Biden shut the Keystone Pipeline in America. Okay, that means we need to depend on our enemies like Russia and Iran for oil. Biden reduced sanctions on oil and our business dealings with them with Iran. Okay, understand what that means. Joe Biden could have oil here in the United States, but chooses to buy it from one of our enemies. Prisoner swaps, what else has Joe Biden done? Everything. But let me tell you, if you think the money that we and other nations now give to Iran because Joe Biden made it okay to do so? If you think this isn't funding terror, you're absolutely insane. So, fewer sanctions for Iran, no sanctions for Hamas or Hezbollah, but sanctions against Israel? Does that sound like it makes sense? Sanctions are being used by this government as political power. Joe Biden is scared to stand with Israel, our greatest ally in the Middle East, because he's scared of the radical left in this country, who, because of their DEI teachings, oppressor and oppressed, the Jews are now considered, because they've become largely successful, I am one of them. Because the Jews have become largely successful, capitalistic, entrepreneurial, they are the oppressor. And Hamas, the oppressed, when we all know that this is not true. But because our young people in college campuses, high school, and maybe even younger have been taught DEI, oppressor and oppressed, they don't stand with Israel. And Joe Biden is too afraid that he is going to lose this voting bloc, that he's no longer supporting our greatest ally in the Middle East. Let me tell you, anti-Semitism is alive and well in this country, and it needs to end. And sanctions need to be used not in a political manner, but in a fair and balanced and needed manner. And the first group that should be sanctioned, Hamas. Second, Hezbollah. Iran, actually maybe they're first. Good on Ted Cruz for laying this bare and showing how corrupt and unfair and unethical the Biden administration truly is.